Good afternoon. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. We'll start in a few moments to give everyone a chance to connect. I see people connecting. Hello and welcome. Bonjour Mathieu. Hello Judith. So we're right on the hour. We will start in about a minute now. So people get a chance to connect. All right, let's get going, Jerry, if you will. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good afternoon. Good morning. I see we have people from almost all continents today. I'm very happy to present this webinar together with Jerry Carroll, who's our Director of Advisory Services. Welcome to the first event of this second series. As you may have seen, this is the second series of 9 webinars, of 3 series of 9 webinars altogether. The first series explained how data-driven risk management works. In the next 3 webinars in this current series, we'll talk about decisions. What and how data-driven risk management can serve you and your organization by changing the answer to some of the highest stakes decisions. So the first webinar of that new second series is about defending the CISO budget. Specifically, how do you walk into a meeting to discuss the budget with your CFO and present numbers that he will accept on that first meeting, rather than fight through several justifications? For those joining our webinars series for the first time, please be aware that the webinar today is self-contained. You don't need to have had the previous webinars as prerequisites. But let's start with a brief reminder of what was covered in the first series of webinar. As will be the case today, we started each of those webinars by making a big, bold claim. And the first one was, most ICT risk programs are useless to board decision-making. The second webinar, we explained that the data you need for data-driven risk program actually exists already in your organization, but in silos and not wired together. Finally, and as a reminder, because most of you know that already, the board does not care about risk scenarios. Board members are concerned with what could impact what they expect as business outcome for their organization. Each time, as will be the case in a minute with the rest of this webinar, we explore the evidence that back those statements. And we broke down why the problem exists in the first place, what needs to change, and how you go about making that change happen. So the agenda today, same structure as the previous 3 webinars, and the same structure that all webinars in the future will follow. The claim, and Jerry will take care of that in a second. The evidence, again, backing up that claim, why that is, and this is the diagnosis, which allows to then understand what is to be expected of changing, of shifting to a newer data-driven program, and how you go about this change. So now, Jerry, what is the claim today?
Thanks, Christoph. So the claim today is CISO budgets get cut not because they're too big, but because they don't use the same language the CFO uses to evaluate other requests. I think many CISOs will have left a meeting or a call thinking the CFO doesn't understand the threat or the importance of improving or implementing this control. The issue is really that the language and the unit of measure used during those presentations or those calls, not the CFO's understanding. The CFO often has nothing to compare it to when they're looking at it, especially when they're comparing to other budget requests from other departments or other managers. So, example, if a CISO says we want to improve our NIST CSF maturity from 2.1 to 2.5, for example, it doesn't tell the CFO what the financial return is. If you compare it to something like marketing, where they use terms like a payback period, or R&D use revenue contribution, for example. The evidence we have for this, so we often see reductions of around 10% of a CISO's budget. Most of these reductions are not data-driven. They're just based on budget pressure. They're not based on any kind of risk analysis. These reductions often don't make sense to CISOs or managers whose budgets are affected, and they're usually not aligned to what was presented or what was requested previously. Our next figures are from a recent Gartner report where 67% of executives felt that the digital spend underperformed their expectations. This leads to a loss of trust for future requests, makes it harder for the next budget cycle, and without a quantified return to show how that investment worked, this cycle will continue. The next one is that 21% of organizations that Gartner classifies as strategic risk managers, that we referred to in one of our previous webinars, they spend more on security, they defend it more easily, and they usually get the budget that they ask for. So to wrap it up, the gap is the unit, not the spend. Until that spend is expressed in euros of expected loss removed, the CFO has nothing to compare it against. So the diagnosis, what the translation gap between what the CISO says and what the CFO hears. So a CISO will often say DLP maturity is 17%. We need 1.2 million to reach 55% in line with NIST CSF guidance. I think this is very common, well understood by CISOs and cyber managers, and everything in it is true. But what the CFO hears is there's no financial returns, which they usually evaluate requests on. They're saying these three numbers, I can't evaluate them. A framework I can't independently verify. CFOs aren't being hostile or stupid or anything when they say this. They just can't compare it to what they're receiving from others. So with this info, they'll either sometimes they'll approve it based on trust from the CISO, but this is very rare. Or more likely they'll reject it or potentially give a partial amount of what was being asked for because they don't understand what's needed. Then we have what a CISO or a CFO needs to hear. 1.2 million moves our breach exposure from 8.4 million to 5.6 million. 2.8 million cut in expected losses with a payback of within around 5 months. This gives them all the information they need. It tells them how much investment is needed, 1.2 million. It tells them the return on that investment, the 2.8 million cut in expected loss. and it gives them a payback period of when or how long it'll take, which is 5 months. They don't need to understand DLP, they don't need to understand the maturity, they don't need to understand NIST per se, but they have the figures they need to know the improvement it's going to make. They can compare that then to other requests from other departments, other teams, using the same units that they use for those. So it's the same investment, it's the same risk, it's just a completely different conversation. So the important thing is the CISO, they need to make this translation. They need to present it in the CFO's language. The CFO won't translate it themselves. You have to do it for them. Just hand back to Christoph now for the shift.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jerry. Indeed, once you wire and treat those issues that you just diagnosed, the conversation can change quite dramatically. In the current state or before, the maturity scores are the unit. You're using the control frameworks, whichever you're referring to, CSF, CISA. Those frameworks serve as the justification. Your budget this year gets compared to last year's budget. And the outcome of that kind of process is usually you get the budget of leftovers. What is left after everything else was funded? What you're aiming to get to is the after situation, where the loss exposure driven model or method uses the financial exposure, the annual loss exposure delta as the units. What you expect as a loss prediction to justify your budget ask. Now, that gets compared to the way other capital allocations are done. And your budget gets approved not against last year or with what's left over, but approved and scoped against what the organization risk appetite is. So those that attended the first webinar of the first series, I remember we mentioned a Gartner figure that 20%, 21% organization are practicing strategic risk management. And the second after loss exposure driven situation is what they get. It's not a different department. It's a different way of measuring. It's a different unit of measures. So now, how can this be done? Well, once loss is quantified in euros, there's something, as we just said, which changes the way you think about controls and the way you communicate about controls. Suddenly, in discussing with your CFO, you're discussing controls as assets. They have a cost, they have a risk reduction effect, and a return on the investment. The same attributes the CFO uses to evaluate other capital allocation in the business. So we usually follow the 5 following steps. The first step, you assess controls performance by domain. What do you have today? You express those controls performance in a way that can be useful, not a maturity level, a percentage efficacy. This is the starting point, the posture on which the whole set of phases of the analysis run on. Second, you quantify loss across each scenario's kill chain in euros, dollar, pounds. The scenario framing is very important. You're not modeling the whole cyber landscape. You're modeling one scenario properly, in depth, in currencies. Third step, you rank every candidate control, every investment you like to make, by the amount of risk that is removed per euros, pounds, dollars you're investing. Again, the unit is critical. The risk removed per currency unit. you want the ratio, right? And this is where you need proper ratio scales as opposed to ordinal or nominal scales. The fourth phase, you actually pick the highest return control on which you invest. And this is where the CFO conversation changes and becomes mechanical rather than negotiating and, again, going back to comparing to what the budget was last year. Of course, you've got to do this on a regular basis, right? You reprice the risk once controls have started showing their effects. The world does not sit still. New threats, new vulnerabilities, controls which are partially deployed. And you want to refresh your model on a regular basis, not annually. So the loop, spend, risk, return on a one page, and then you refresh on a regular basis. That's your living plan. Now, maybe, Jerry, you can illustrate that with an example to grounded in reality, things we've done at customers.
Yep, absolutely. So here we have an example of the output of the method Christoph just walked us through. We've 3 control domains compared using the same units. So we have our investment cost, the amount of risk it removes, and the return on investment, or the risk per euro spent. So looking at the first one, we have detection and response. So this includes controls and technology such as EDR, your SOC, controls that will reduce dwell time for attackers. This defends against all the attack paths of our scenario. We just have them labeled P1 to P4. So it covers every attack path. The spend is 900K. It removes 2 million of risk per year from the ALE, and that gives us a return on investment of 2.3 million. It gives us a net present value, which is investment profitability of 4.5 million across 5 years. So the key benefit of this, improving this control domain, is it sits on every attack path. So any improvement or every improvement matters, and it gives us a strong return on investment. We next have identity and access. So this is controls such as MFA, privileged access management, conditional access. It covers 3 out of 4 attack paths. Has a higher cost, so 1.2 million, but it has a greater overall risk reduction of 2.3 million per year compared to 2 million for detect and respond. Overall, it gives us a return on investment of 1.9 million. So I think this gives us a really good example of where the biggest risk reduction amount isn't always the best approach, right? The return on investment difference shows us that investing in detect and respond controls will have a greater return on investment for us over identity and access, and gives the CFO that picture, which is what they want to see in financial terms. Then we have backup and recovery. It only covers 2 of the paths we analyze, for example. Again, we have our spend, how much it removes, gives us a return on investment of 1.5 million. So this might have the smallest return on investment, but with this control, which includes, immutable backups, isolated restoration, it helps the most with kind of worst case scenario events, or those events with a long tail. So the benefit, or the reason that detection and response leads in this case, is it gives us reach across every path with a relatively low cost, but the return on investment per euro is greatest rather than the overall reduction. This next slide is a portfolio view. So it gives us the same 3 control domains we discussed on the previous slide, along with additional 2 control domains here. So you can see the figures are the same for detection and response, identity, backup and recovery. It's the same unit, same logic, but we also have data protection, which again reduces ALE, has a positive return on investment, but has a negative net present value over the 5-year period, and network segmentation is the same, positive ROI but negative net present value over the same time period. When we combine the 5 control domains for our portfolio view along the bottom, I guess the question people ask is why fund the bottom 2? They both have positive return on investment, but the real benefit is they will cap the long tail scenarios. So those low frequency, high impact events that can occur, these controls will really help with those where some of the other controls will not, right? So overall, with defense in depth, it means sometimes we have to accept a lower return on investment for some layers, but they'll pay us back on those worst case scenarios where the other controls might not be relevant or might not have the same impact. So using this with customers, the CFO will look at the combined portfolio. They will they fund that tail reduction and defense in depth. And overall it gives us a positive NPV for the all control domains. So how to read it? Our reduction per euro ranks them. Detect and respond leads, has a decent cost. Data protection, network segmentation are standalone. They're funded for those long tail events, and defense in depth, as we mentioned. So I guess as we get towards the end, I'll hand back to Christoph.
Thank you, Jerry. And before we go into what's next, I'd like to ask the audience whether there's any questions. I've seen some comments and maybe some questions. Jason, you seem to someone in the audience shared that Jason shared that he seems to be getting a different experience with some customers, and apparently maybe that's because he's been dealing with customers that are in that 20-21% part of the organization practicing strategic risk management, with security leaders already having the after type of conversation with their leaders, with the COMEX or the executive committee, the EXCO in English. Our experience is that most operational security teams struggle with explaining and aggregating their risk analysis in a way that then can be used by the mid-management and the CISO in order to then translate and engage with the business. And in particular, the example we were talking about today, because that's the topic of the webinar today. How do you make your security remediation strategy and risk remediation strategy more defendable? Again, that's our experience in most of our customers, mid-sized companies and large or very large. The conversation has been something of a difficult to make relevant to all line 1, line 2, and line 3 audiences in the organization. So some other questions. Hello, Franco. Long time no see. Nice to have you with us today. You're making some observation. So any investment can be made to look good by choosing the right scenarios. Who owns the assumptions and who challenges them independently of the person defending the budget? That's a very good point. And again, from our experience, the CISO is not alone in building his budget. He's got a team, and in the data-driven approach to risk management, ahead of a budget being built, sized, and justified, the security team, operational team, as well as the CISO in charge of establishing the strategy and the budget, engage with the business ahead of time. They don't make up scenarios. They go to the budget to understand what the business is most concerned about. What would slow down or stop the value chain that are resulting in the expected business outcome? And if those are the concern, what scenarios can be envisioned and build, again, together with the business, together with the executive team, in order to try and understand what could happen, what could possibly go wrong, and if it were to go wrong, how much would it cost? And where controls, whether security controls to prevent loss events in the first place, or resilience controls can be added in order to get the most risk churn. And this is what I think Jerry was illustrating with a couple slide examples, where suddenly the conversation is really changing quite dramatically. We're no longer talking of key control indicators and key risk indicators that are meaningless to decision makers. But we're talking in currency, in financial terms, that again are used for assessing investment in all other disciplines of the organization. And we, just a side comment, we use the board, the name of the board, the word board, and executive committee as if they were the same. The responsibility are quite different. Again, the board as the oversight, and the board would probably not get this. This is the security, strategic security committee. The risk committee would have that type of dashboard. The board as yet a more abstract and a view which is aligned with the rest of operational risk. I see. Well, I don't know that there are questions. They're more discussion amongst the members of the audience. I see another question. Maybe, are we defending the CISO budget or protecting the company's value? That's a good point. I would think that in defending the CISO budget, we're trying to protect the company's value and its value chain. I like to think that at the simplest, most abstract level, a company is a flow of data and a flow of money. What we're concerned about is what could impair those flows, slow them down, or even worse, stop them. And the CISO's function is to try and see how it prevents anything from slowing down, or worse, stopping those flows. So I think we're defending both. Or in defending the CISO's budget, we're trying to protect the company's value. But I'm happy to take any other comments if others are thinking otherwise. Some more comments or some other questions? Welcome, Franco. Thanks, David, for some of the comments. Thierry, how do we select the discount rate used for NPV calculation? That's a good question. I don't know that I have a straightforward answer. It would depend and would depend on the circumstance as well as the time horizon that's being discussed in the organization and with the CFO. Usually we'll ask that of the CFO just to make sure we align with them. Well, you're most welcome, Jason, and we're certainly as happy as you are to know that we're not alone in trying, well, to get most organization into that good place. Those 21% organization practicing strategic risk management and using data rather than colors or 1, 2, 3 scores. Again, we're not promising that this is done easily and in no time. This takes a change in approach, and as any major change in any major human organization, it takes some time. But as we were saying, it's also something that is not a one-shot, a one-off effort. This is something that is built upon time and delivers value over time. But it delivers value early in the process, I think. Any other comments, questions that either Jerry or I or some people in the audience can try and attack?
I think we have one other question there in the Q&A. Are we defending the CISO's budget or protecting the company's value?
I think I tried to address that earlier. We're saying that in defending the CISO's budget, what we're after is really protecting the company's value. And I think this is what most security team are really doing, right?
Yeah.
Day in, day out. All right. Well, that's good. Thank you. Thank you for the engagement. Thank you to the audience. As always, this will be available for replay, and I believe the deck is actually downloadable afterward. I hope you found it useful. Please don't forget that the next webinars are already set. The next is on July 21st. It will cover cyber insurance, sizing coverage against exposure, and evidently financial exposure. The third webinar of that series 2 will be hosted on August 20th, and we'll talk about GenAI and cyber risk, putting numbers on what you're deploying. If you've not registered yet, please do so now. Please reserve your seat. I wish everyone a good summer, and look forward to seeing you next on our webinar series. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.